Claire Mitchell wiped down the counter for the third time that evening. Luna's diner sat in the quiet corner of Threshold Station, far from the bustling commercial district where most visitors spent their credits. The lunch rush had ended hours ago, and now only the hum of life support systems and the occasional footstep in the corridor outside broke the silence. She glanced at the clock. Another 2 hours until closing. Her feet ached, and her back reminded her that she had been standing since 6 in the morning. The diner was not much to look at. Worn booths lined the walls, their vinyl seats patched with tape. The menu board still advertised daily specials from 3 days ago. But it was honest work, and Claire needed honest work. The door chimed. Claire looked up and froze. 3 small creatures waddled through the entrance. They were barely waist-high, with scales that shimmered in shades of purple, blue, and gold. Their eyes were large and round like those of curious children. Small wings folded against their backs, too tiny to carry their plump bodies. They moved awkwardly, bumping into each other as they tried to navigate the narrow space between tables. Dragons? Or at least something that looked like the dragons from old Earth stories? Claire had seen many alien species during her 2 years on Threshold Station. The galaxy was full of strange beings. But these creatures were different. They seemed so young, so uncertain. One of them tripped over its own tail and let out a high-pitched chirp of surprise. Hello, Claire said, keeping her voice gentle. Welcome to Luna's diner. Can I help you? The 3 creatures looked at each other. They chirped and clicked in a language Claire did not understand. Finally, the purple one stepped forward. It held up a small translation device that flickered with a weak blue light. Food, the device crackled. We need food. Of course, Claire said with a smile. She grabbed 3 menus from behind the counter and walked over to the nearest booth. Here, sit down. Take your time. The young dragons climbed onto the seats with great difficulty. Their short legs dangled above the floor. They huddled together, staring at the menus with wide eyes. Claire noticed their hands trembled slightly as they turned the pages. They looked lost. They looked scared. Claire felt something tug at her heart. She had been lost once too, arriving at Threshold Station with nothing but a duffel bag and hope. She remembered how overwhelming everything had seemed. First time at a human restaurant? She asked softly. The golden dragon nodded. Its scales dimmed slightly as if embarrassed. That's okay, Claire said. Tell you what, our menu can be confusing. How about I recommend something simple? Something comfort food. The translation devices buzzed as her words converted into their language. The 3 dragons chittered among themselves, then the purple one looked up at her. Simple. Yes, simple is good. Claire thought for a moment. What was the simplest, most comforting thing on the menu? What had her grandmother made for her when she was young and the world felt too big? Macaroni and cheese, she said. It's pasta with a creamy cheese sauce. Very basic, but it's made with care. Would you like to try that? The dragons consulted their devices and each other. Finally, all 3 nodded eagerly. 3 orders of macaroni and cheese coming right up, Claire said. She headed back to the kitchen, glancing over her shoulder at the unusual customers. They sat close together, whispering and looking around the diner with nervous curiosity. In the kitchen, Claire pulled out a pot and filled it with water. She could have used the automatic food synthesizer like most restaurants on the station. It would have been faster. But her grandmother had taught her that real food, made by hand, tasted different. It tasted like someone cared. While the water boiled, Claire prepared the cheese sauce from scratch. She grated real cheddar, added a touch of cream, a pinch of nutmeg like her grandmother always did. The secret ingredient, Gran had called it. The kitchen filled with the warm, rich smell of melting cheese. She cooked the pasta until it was perfectly tender, then mixed everything together. The sauce coated each piece of macaroni in a golden embrace. Claire divided the meal onto 3 plates, added a sprinkle of breadcrumbs on top, and carried them out to the waiting dragons. Here you go, she said, setting the plates down carefully. Be careful, it's hot. Let it cool for a minute. The dragons stared at the food. They leaned forward, their nostrils flaring as they breathed in the aroma. Then something strange happened. Their scales began to glow. The purple dragon's scales pulsed with deep violet light. The blue one shimmered like water under moonlight. The golden dragon blazed with amber brilliance. They looked at each other with expressions Claire could not quite read, then picked up their forks with trembling hands. The purple dragon took the first bite. Its eyes went wide. Its whole body shuddered. A sound emerged from its throat, something between a sigh and a song. The other 2 dragons quickly tasted their food, and the same reaction spread through them. Their scales grew brighter and brighter until Claire had to squint against the light. Tears rolled down the golden dragon's cheeks. "Are you okay?" Claire asked, worried she had somehow made them sick. "Is something wrong?" The purple dragon looked up at her. Its translation device crackled with static, struggling to convey the emotion behind its words. This is, we cannot, thank you." They ate slowly, savoring every bite. They did not speak. They simply experienced the food with an intensity Claire had never witnessed before. It was just macaroni and cheese, the simplest thing on the menu, yet they treated it like something sacred. When they finished, their scales had returned to normal, but their eyes still shone with wetness. The purple dragon reached into a small pouch at its side and pulled out a crystal. It was perfectly clear, no bigger than a marble, but it caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the table. "For you," the dragon said, placing it in Claire's hand. "Thank you for the gift." "Oh, you don't have to," Claire started to say, but the dragons were already climbing down from the booth. They moved quickly now, with purpose, heading for the door. "Wait," Claire called. "I don't even know your names." The purple dragon paused at the door and looked back. "You will," it said through the translator. "Soon everyone will." Then they were gone, waddling out into the station corridor and disappearing around a corner. Claire stood in the empty diner, holding the crystal. It was warm in her palm, pulsing with a faint inner light. She had no idea what had just happened. She had served thousands of meals in her 2 years at the diner, but nothing like this. Nothing that provoked such a reaction. She looked down at the crystal again, turning it over in her fingers. What had those young dragons tasted in her simple macaroni and cheese? What had moved them so deeply? Claire did not know. She slipped the crystal into her pocket and began clearing the table. The plates were completely clean, not a trace of food left behind. Even the breadcrumbs had been eaten. Outside the diner's window, the lights of Threshold Station twinkled like stars. Ships came and went, carrying people and cargo across the galaxy. Claire returned to her counter, picking up her cleaning cloth once more. It had been a strange evening. But strange things happened on space stations. Tomorrow would be ordinary again. She was sure of it. She could not have been more wrong. Claire arrived at the diner the next morning to find a crowd outside. At least 30 people pressed against the windows, peering inside. News drones hovered above them, their cameras sweeping back and forth. Security officers tried to maintain order, but more people kept arriving every minute. "What in the world?" Claire muttered, pushing through the crowd. "Excuse me. I work here. Please let me through." A reporter shoved a microphone in her face. "Are you Claire Mitchell? Is it true you served the Velsheri last night?" "The what?" Claire blinked at the camera, now recording her confused expression. "You don't know?" Another reporter crowded closer. "3 Velsheri juveniles visited your establishment yesterday. What did you serve them?" Claire's mind raced back to the 3 small dragons. "I served them macaroni and cheese." What's going on?" The reporters erupted with questions all at once. Claire pushed past them and unlocked the diner door, slipping inside quickly before anyone could follow. She locked it behind her and leaned against the glass, her heart pounding. Her communicator buzzed. It was her boss, Martin Foster, who owned Luna's diner. "Claire. Thank God you're there. Don't open the doors yet. I'm coming over right now. We need to talk." "Martin, what's happening? Who are the Velsheri?" There was a long pause. "You really don't know?" "Claire, the Velsheri are the most famous chefs in the entire galaxy. They're ancient, they're powerful, and they judge species by their food. They've been traveling the cosmos for thousands of years, tasting cuisines and ranking civilizations." Claire sank into the nearest booth. Those 3 little dragons were famous chefs? Not just any chefs. They're from the Velsheri Master Academy. Apparently, what you served them last night caused some kind of unprecedented reaction. It's all over the galactic news networks. "Claire, we're about to become the most famous restaurant in human space." Claire looked around the shabby diner. The cracked vinyl seats. The flickering light in the corner that Martin kept promising to fix. The menu board with its faded letters. This place was about to become famous? "This must be a mistake," she whispered. "No mistake. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't open those doors until I arrive." The communicator went silent. Claire walked to the window and peeked through the blinds. The crowd had doubled. She recognized species from a dozen different worlds. A tall Centaurian in diplomatic robes spoke urgently into a communication device. A group of Terran food critics argued loudly about something. More news drones arrived, filling the air like mechanical insects. Her communicator buzzed again. This time it was a message from an unknown sender. Claire opened it hesitantly. To Claire Mitchell, maker of heart resonance food. The Vel-Sherry Council requests your presence for formal evaluation. Your simple creation has stirred something long dormant in our youth. We must understand. We must taste. Formal invitation to follow. Claire read the message 3 times. Heart resonance food? Formal evaluation? This had to be some kind of joke. But the crowd outside was real. The news drones were real. Martin arrived 15 minutes later, slightly out of breath and carrying a tablet full of messages. Claire, we've received 347 requests for reservations in the last hour. The Threshold Station administration wants to meet with us. There are 17 galactic food critics demanding access. And... He paused, his hands shaking slightly. The Vel-Sherry themselves have requested a formal tasting. Martin, I just made macaroni and cheese. That's all. It's pasta and cheese sauce. Apparently it's more than that. Martin pulled up a video on his tablet. This aired 2 hours ago on the Galactic Cultural Network. The video showed an elderly alien that looked like an adult version of the 3 young dragons from last night. Its scales were deep silver, marked with intricate patterns. Its eyes held ancient wisdom. The translator caption appeared below as it spoke. For 3 centuries, the Vel-Sherry have searched for what we call heart resonance. Food that speaks not to the palate alone but to the spirit. Food that carries memory, emotion, connection. Our youth were sent to explore human cuisine, a relatively new species with little reputation. What they found was unexpected. A simple human preparation, created by an untrained cook in a modest establishment, achieved what our master chefs have failed to create in their perfection-seeking. The elderly Vel-Sherry leaned closer to the camera. The human called Claire Mitchell has reminded us what we forgot. That food is more than technique. It is love made visible. The video ended. Claire stared at the blank screen. That's Elder Karvesh, Martin said quietly. He's the most respected food authority in the known galaxy. When he speaks, entire planets listen. And he just praised your macaroni and cheese on intergalactic television. Claire's legs felt weak. She sat down heavily. But I'm not special. I just cook the way my grandmother taught me. I don't have formal training. I barely graduated from basic culinary cert courses. Maybe that's exactly why it matters, Martin said. He looked around the diner with new eyes. Claire, we have a decision to make. We can try to ignore this, though I don't think that's possible now. Or we can embrace it. Either way, nothing will ever be the same. A sharp knock on the door interrupted them. Through the window, Claire saw a tall woman in an official Threshold Station uniform. The administrator's insignia gleamed on her collar. Martin unlocked the door. The woman entered quickly, followed by 2 security officers who immediately took positions by the windows. I'm Administrator Patricia Reeves, the woman said. I need to discuss the situation with you both. The Vel-Sherry have announced their intention to conduct a formal evaluation here at Luna's Diner. This is the first time in human history that they've shown this level of interest in our cuisine. The diplomatic implications are enormous. We just serve food, Claire said weakly. Not anymore. Administrator Reeves pulled up a holographic display. It showed news coverage from across the galaxy. Headlines in a dozen languages. Images of the diner. Claire's face, pulled from security footage, displayed on screens across multiple worlds. Human cuisine receives unprecedented Vel-Sherry recognition. Unknown Waitress creates heart resonance food. Earth's culinary traditions stun galactic masters. Claire's head spun. Yesterday she had been worried about making rent. Today her face was on news broadcasts across the galaxy. What do they want from me? She asked. Administrator Reeves' expression softened slightly. They want to understand what you did. How you did it. And they want you to do it again in front of witnesses. The Vel-Sherry don't give second chances, Miss Mitchell. This formal evaluation will determine how the galaxy views human cuisine for generations to come. When? 3 days from now. They're sending a delegation including Elder Karvesh himself. You'll prepare a meal that demonstrates what they call heart resonance. They'll judge it according to their ancient standards. Claire thought about the 3 young dragons, how they had glowed when they tasted her food. How tears had rolled down their faces. She had simply cooked the way Gran had taught her, with care and attention and love. Could she do that again under pressure? With the galaxy watching? What if I fail? Administrator Reeves looked her directly in the eyes. Then humanity's chance to be recognized as a culinary civilization fails with you. No pressure. Martin put a hand on Claire's shoulder. You don't have to do this. We can refuse. Claire looked out at the crowd. She saw hope in their faces. She saw humans who wanted their culture recognized. She saw the possibility of something bigger than herself. She thought about her grandmother who had taught her that food was love, that cooking for someone was caring for them. "I'll do it," Claire said quietly. "Not because I think I'm special, but because someone needs to show them what human food really means." Administrator Reeves nodded with satisfaction. "Then we have 3 days to prepare. Welcome to galactic history, Miss Mitchell." The diner had been transformed. Camera crews filled every corner. Holographic recording devices floated near the ceiling. Representatives from 24 species sat in carefully arranged seats. Claire stood in her small kitchen, which suddenly felt even smaller with all the attention focused on it. Through the kitchen window she could see Elder Karvesh. He was larger than the young dragons, his silver scales marked with golden patterns that spoke of age and authority. He sat at the center table, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. 2 other Velsheri elders flanked him, both watching Claire with what she could only describe as skepticism. Administrator Reeves had explained the format. Claire would prepare a meal. The elders would taste it. They would render judgment. Simple. Terrifying. Claire's hands trembled as she tied her apron. She had barely slept in 3 days. Every food critic in human space had offered advice. Cooking experts had sent her detailed instructions. The galactic news networks had analyzed her grandmother's recipe as if it contained cosmic secrets. But none of that helped now. Now she was alone in her kitchen, expected to recreate magic. Elder Karvesh stood. His voice carried through the diner without need for amplification. "Claire Mitchell, you stand before the Velsheri Council of Culinary Judgment. Our youth claimed your food possesses heart resonance. I am unconvinced. Humans are a young species. Your culinary traditions are primitive compared to civilizations that have refined cooking for millennia." Claire felt her stomach drop. The translator made his words sound even harsher. "I believe our youth were charmed by novelty," Karvesh continued. "Not by genuine skill. Young beings are easily impressed. They lack the refined palate necessary for true judgment. Today, you will prove whether your cooking deserves the attention it has received, or whether it was merely a fortunate accident that fooled inexperienced judges." The room fell silent. Claire gripped the edge of her counter. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. Who was she to stand before these ancient beings? She was just a waitress who had learned to cook from her grandmother. The diner door opened. 3 familiar shapes waddled in. The young dragons from that first night pushed through the crowd. Their scales glowed softly with purple, blue, and gold. They moved directly to Claire's kitchen window, their large eyes full of something that looked like concern. "Please," the purple one said through its translator. "May we speak with Claire Mitchell before the evaluation begins?" Elder Karvesh looked displeased but waved his hand in permission. The 3 young dragons slipped into the kitchen. Up close, Claire could see they wore small badges marked with symbols she did not recognize. "You are scared," the golden dragon said simply. Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. "Elder Karvesh is wrong," the blue dragon said. Its voice was soft but certain. "He thinks skill is everything. He thinks perfection of technique creates the best food. But he has forgotten." "Forgotten what?" Claire whispered. The purple dragon stepped closer. "He has forgotten why we cook. Why we eat together. Why food matters at all. For 300 years, Velsheri cooking has become more and more perfect. More complex. More technically brilliant. But something was lost. When we tasted your food," the golden dragon continued, "we felt something we had never felt before. We call it heart resonance. It means food that carries the maker's care. Food that holds memory and love. Food that feeds not just the body but the spirit." The blue dragon pulled out a small device. It projected images into the air. Claire saw elaborate dishes arranged like works of art. Sauces formed into impossible spirals. Ingredients balanced on microscopic platforms. Food that looked more like sculpture than meals. "This is what Velsheri cooking has become," the dragon said. "Beautiful. Perfect. And empty. We can create tastes that no other species can match. We can prepare dishes that defy physics. But we cannot make food that feels like home. We cannot make food that tastes like love. Your macaroni and cheese was simple," the purple dragon said. "So simple that Elder Karvesh thinks it was nothing. But we tasted your grandmother in it. We tasted the care you took making it by hand instead of using machines. We tasted that you wanted us to feel welcomed and safe. That is heart resonance. That is what we were sent to find." Claire felt tears building in her eyes. "But I don't know how to do that under pressure. Not with everyone watching. Not with him expecting me to fail. The golden dragon reached out and touched Claire's hand with its small clawed fingers. Then do not cook for him. Do not cook for the cameras or the critics or the galaxy. Cook for us. Cook like we are three scared young beings who walked into your diner and needed comfort. Cook like no one is watching except someone you want to care for. The blue dragon nodded. Heart resonance cannot be forced. It cannot be faked. You either care or you do not. We believe you care. Show Elder Karvesh what he has forgotten how to see. The three young dragons filed out of the kitchen, leaving Claire alone with their words. She looked out at the crowd. At Elder Karvesh sitting with his critical expression. At the cameras and the diplomats and the crushing weight of expectations. Her breathing felt tight. Her mind raced with everything that could go wrong. Then she closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother's kitchen back on Earth. The worn wooden table. The herbs growing in pots on the windowsill. The way Gran would hum while she cooked, not because anyone was listening, but because cooking made her happy. Food is love made visible, Gran used to say. You cook for someone, you're telling them they matter. You're telling them they deserve care. Don't ever forget that, Claire Bear. Claire opened her eyes. She looked at her ingredients laid out on the counter. Simple things. Flour, butter, vegetables from the station's hydroponic gardens, cheese, herbs. Nothing exotic or rare. Nothing that would impress with complexity. But she could make them into something honest. Something real. She turned away from the window and focused on her work. She would not cook for Elder Karvesh. She would not cook for the judgment or the cameras. She would cook the way Gran had taught her. With care. With attention. With love for the person who would eat it. Claire began to prepare her meal. She did not rush. She did not try to add flourishes or complexity. She simply cooked the way she knew how. Each motion was deliberate. Each ingredient was respected. She tasted as she went, adjusting and refining, but not to achieve perfection. To achieve honesty. The kitchen filled with familiar smells. Bread baking. Vegetables roasting. Soup simmering. Simple things but made with care. She thought about the three young dragons and how frightened they had looked that first night. She thought about her own fear when she had first arrived on Threshold Station. She thought about every time her grandmother had made her feel safe with a bowl of soup or a slice of warm bread. This was what she knew how to do. Not impress. Not dazzle. But comfort. Care. Connect. When the meal was ready, Claire arranged it on simple plates. No elaborate presentation. No artistic sculptures. Just honest food plated with respect. She carried the first plate out to Elder Karvesh. Her hands no longer trembled. She was not confident exactly. But she was certain of one thing. Whatever happened next, she had cooked with her whole heart. This is my grandmother's gift to you, Claire said quietly, setting the plate before the ancient chef. I hope it speaks the language your youth understood. Elder Karvesh looked down at the simple meal. His expression revealed nothing. Then he picked up his fork. Elder Karvesh lifted the first spoonful to his mouth. The diner held its breath. Cameras zoomed closer. Every being in the room leaned forward, waiting for his reaction. The soup was simple. Chicken broth with vegetables and herbs. Claire had made it the way her grandmother taught her, simmering the bones for hours to extract every bit of flavor. She had added carrots cut into even pieces, celery chopped with care, and a handful of egg noodles. Nothing fancy. Nothing complex. Karvesh's expression remained neutral as he swallowed. He took another spoonful. Then another. The other two Velsheri elders watched him carefully, waiting for his signal. Finally, Karvesh set down his spoon. Tell me about this dish. Claire stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. My grandmother made this soup when someone in the family was sick. Or sad. Or when the world felt too heavy. She said soup was a hug you could eat. The long cooking time is not about technique. It's about patience. It's about being willing to spend time caring for someone. Karvesh's scales flickered with a faint glow, so quick Claire almost missed it. Continue. Claire brought out the second course. Roasted root vegetables glazed with honey and herbs. She had cut each piece by hand, arranged them in the pan with attention, and turned them carefully as they cooked. The vegetables glistened with caramelized sweetness. The three elders each took portions. They ate in silence. Claire watched their faces for any sign of judgment, but the Velsheri were masters at controlling their expressions. These vegetables, the elder to Karvesh's right said, her silver scales marked with blue patterns. They are perfectly ordinary. Standard farming varieties. Nothing rare or exotic. Why did you choose them? Because these are the vegetables that grow best on Threshold Station, Claire answered. I buy them from a farmer named George Tucker. He's been trying to develop strains that thrive in artificial growing environments. These carrots are his pride and joy. When I cook them, I'm honoring his work. I'm telling him his effort matters. The female elder tilted her head. You think of the farmer while you cook? Always, Claire said. My grandmother taught me that food connects us to everyone who made it possible. The farmer who grew it, the people who transported it, the story behind every ingredient. When you forget that, food becomes just fuel, just sustenance. It loses its meaning. Karvesh said nothing, but his eyes had changed. The hardness had softened slightly. Claire brought out the third course. Fresh bread, still warm from the oven, with butter that she had churned herself. The bread's crust crackled as she sliced it. Steam rose from the soft interior. She had braided the dough, a technique Gran had shown her countless times. Why braid? The third elder asked, his scales marked with green. A simple loaf would bake more evenly. Claire smiled for the first time since the evaluation began. My grandmother braided bread because her grandmother did. And her grandmother before that. This pattern has been passed down through 6 generations of my family. When I braid bread, I'm connected to all of them. They're in the kitchen with me even though most of them are gone now. She watched the elders taste the bread. They ate slowly, methodically. The young dragons sat nearby, their scales glowing softly. They looked hopeful, eager. Karvesh finished his portion and set down his plate. He looked at Claire with those ancient eyes. You have one more course? Yes, Claire said. Then bring it. Let us see what you consider the culmination of this meal. Claire returned to the kitchen. Her final dish waited on the counter. She had debated what to serve. Part of her wanted to make something impressive, something that would prove she understood complexity. But that would have been dishonest. Instead, she had made the dish that started everything. She carried out 4 plates of macaroni and cheese. The same recipe as before. Pasta coated in creamy cheese sauce, topped with breadcrumbs. Nothing had changed. Nothing was different. The silence in the diner was absolute. Karvesh stared at the plate. You serve us the same dish that you served our youth? Yes, Claire said. Because this is the truth of what I do. I'm not a master chef. I don't know ancient techniques or exotic ingredients. I know how to make simple food with care. If that's not enough, then I'm not enough. But I won't pretend to be something I'm not. The 3 young dragons' scales blazed with light. They looked at Claire with expressions of pure joy. Karvesh picked up his fork. He cut a small piece of the macaroni, watching how the cheese stretched and clung to the pasta. He brought it to his mouth. And something extraordinary happened. His scales began to glow. Not the soft flicker from before, but a brilliant silver light that filled the entire diner. The other 2 elders gasped. The young dragons chirped with excitement. The whole room erupted in whispers. Karvesh's eyes closed. A single tear rolled down his scaled cheek. When he opened his eyes again, they were different. Softer. Full of something that looked like pain and joy mixed together. I remember, he whispered. The room fell silent again. 347 years ago, Karvesh said, his voice thick with emotion. I was a young chef. Eager. Passionate. I wanted to create food that would change the galaxy. I studied every technique. I mastered every skill. I pursued perfection with absolute dedication. He looked down at the macaroni and cheese. My mother made me something like this. Before I left home to attend the academy. It was simple. Humble. She was not a trained chef. She was just a mother who loved her son. I remember thinking her food was crude. Unsophisticated. I was embarrassed that she could not create the complex dishes I was learning. His voice cracked. That was the last meal she ever made for me. She died while I was studying at the academy. I never told her that I loved her cooking. I never told her it mattered. I was too busy pursuing perfection to understand what I had lost. The diner was absolutely still. Even the cameras seemed frozen. For 3 centuries, Karvesh continued, I have created masterpieces. I have invented techniques that other species cannot replicate. I have judged thousands of chefs and found them all lacking in some way. I convinced myself that this pursuit of perfection honored my craft. But the truth is, I was running from the memory of my mother's simple food. Running from the shame of never appreciating what she gave me. He looked directly at Claire. You did not give me perfect food. You gave me honest food. Food made with the same care my mother showed. The same willingness to simply feed someone without needing praise or recognition. You reminded me why I first loved cooking before it became about achievement and status and judgment. Karvesh stood slowly. The other elders watched him with wide eyes. The Velsheri have spent centuries perfecting technique while forgetting purpose. We sent our youth to find what we lost. And they found it in a human waitress who learned from her grandmother. He bowed to Claire. A deep, formal bow that brought gasps from the crowd. In Velsheri culture, elders never bowed to anyone. You have taught me more with 4 simple dishes than I have learned in 300 years of study, Karvesh said. Heart resonance is real. And we forgot how to create it. Claire felt tears on her own cheeks. She had not expected understanding. She had not expected connection. She had only hoped not to fail. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing what I meant to share. Karvesh's scales glowed softly, warmly. No. Thank you for remembering what matters. And for teaching an old chef that sometimes the simplest food carries the deepest truth. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. Elder Karvesh's emotional response had been broadcast to every corner of known space. The image of the ancient chef bowing to a human waitress became the most shared recording in galactic history. Claire's simple meal had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy could not. 3 days after the evaluation, Claire sat in Luna's diner with Administrator Reeves, Martin, and a holographic projection of the Velsheri Council. All 7 council members appeared before her, their scales shimmering in shades of silver, gold, and bronze. Karvesh spoke first. Claire Mitchell. The Velsheri Council has reached a unanimous decision. We declare human cuisine to be spiritually profound. Not technically perfect. Not the most complex or refined. But essential. Your species has preserved something the galaxy desperately needs. The ability to cook with heart resonance. The understanding that food is connection, not just consumption. The other council members nodded in agreement. A female elder with bronze scales leaned forward. We offer you a position at the Grand Velsheri Academy. You would become the first non-Velsheri master instructor in our history. You would teach our students what we have forgotten. Your salary would be substantial. Your status would be legendary. You would shape the future of galactic cuisine. Claire looked at the faces around her. Martin beamed with pride. Administrator Reeves looked excited about the prestige this would bring to Threshold Station. The young dragons sat nearby, their scales glowing with hope. It was everything she should want. Recognition. Status. A chance to influence the galaxy. Her grandmother would have been so proud. But something felt wrong. May I ask a question? Claire said quietly. Of course, Karvesh replied. If I come to your academy, I would be one person teaching hundreds of students. I would teach your techniques, your methods, your traditions. But heart resonance is not something you can teach like a recipe. It is something you live. Something you pass down through connection and care. If I leave my home, leave my community, leave the diner where I learned these lessons, would I still have heart resonance to share? The council members looked at each other. The question had clearly surprised them. Claire stood up, her voice growing stronger. You honor me with this offer. But I think there is a better way. Instead of me coming to your academy, what if your students came here? What if we created an exchange program? Velsheri students could come to Luna's diner and learn not just from me, but from the community. From George Tucker who grows the vegetables. From the regulars who come here not because the food is perfect but because it feels like home. From the messy, imperfect reality of what cooking actually means. She walked to the window looking out at Threshold Station. And human students could visit your academy to learn your techniques. Not to replace heart resonance but to combine it with skill. Imagine what we could create together. Food that has both technical brilliance and spiritual depth. Both precision and soul. Karvesh's scales flickered with light. You would turn down the greatest honor in galactic cuisine to stay in this small diner? Not to stay small, Claire said, turning back to face them. To stay true. My grandmother taught me in this kind of place. Humble. Real. Connected to community. If I chase status and recognition, I become what you were before you remembered your mother's cooking. I lose the very thing you want me to teach. The bronze elder tilted her head thoughtfully. You propose we bring our academy to you rather than you coming to us? I propose we meet in the middle, Claire said. Luna's diner becomes a teaching kitchen. A place where both species learn from each other. Where technique and heart resonance combine. Where students understand that great cooking is not just about skill or just about care, but about both together. Martin cleared his throat. Claire, are you sure about this? The academy offer is incredible. You could travel the galaxy. Meet important people. Your name would be in history books. Claire smiled at her boss. My grandmother's name is not in any history books. But she changed my life. She taught me what matters. If I can do that for even a few students, that is enough. That is what she would have wanted. The council members spoke among themselves in their own language, a musical series of chirps and whistles that the translators could not fully capture. Finally, Karvesh looked back at Claire. Your proposal is unusual. Unprecedented. But then, everything about you has been unprecedented. Very well. The Velsheri Council accepts. Luna's Diner will become the first Earth Velsheri culinary exchange. We will send students to learn from you and your community. You will send human students to our academy to study technique. Together, we will create a new understanding of what food can be. The purple young dragon could not contain its excitement any longer. It bounced up and down, its scales blazing with joy. Does this mean we get to stay? We get to study with Claire. Karvesh's expression softened when he looked at the three younglings. Yes. You three will be the first exchange students. You found heart resonance. Now you must learn to combine it with your training. Perhaps then you will become the chefs I hoped to create but could not. Administrator Reeves looked both excited and nervous. We will need to expand the diner. Add teaching facilities. Dormitories for students. This will require significant construction. The Velsheri will provide funding, the Bronze Elder said. Consider it an investment in galactic cultural development. We are not a poor species and this knowledge is worth more than credits. Over the following weeks, Luna's Diner transformed. The building expanded, adding a teaching kitchen with enough space for 20 students. Dormitory rooms were built in the adjacent structure. But Claire insisted the original diner remain unchanged. The worn boots stayed. The patched vinyl seats stayed. The flickering light that Martin finally fixed stayed in its original place as a reminder. The first class of students arrived 2 months later. 10 young Velsheri, including the 3 who had first tasted Claire's macaroni. 10 human students selected from culinary programs across Earth and its colonies. All of them eager, nervous and curious. Claire stood before them on the first day, wearing her simple apron. No fancy chef's uniform. No impressive credentials listed on the wall. Just her, in the kitchen where she had learned what mattered. Welcome, she said. I'm not going to teach you how to be famous chefs. I'm not going to teach you how to win awards or impress critics. I'm going to teach you why we cook at all. Why food matters beyond nutrition. Why a simple meal made with care can change someone's entire day. She gestured to the kitchen. You will learn technique from the Velsheri masters who visit. They will teach you precision, skill and knowledge I could never provide. But I will teach you to ask a different question. Not, how do I make this perfect? But, who am I feeding and what do they need? A human student raised her hand. What if we fail? What if we cook something and it is not good? Claire smiled. Then you will learn the most important lesson of all. That failure with care is worth more than perfection without soul. My grandmother burned more dishes than she would ever admit. But every meal she made told me I was loved. That is what I hope you will learn here. How to cook in a way that tells people they matter. The students looked at each other. Some seemed confused. Others nodded with understanding. The 3 young dragons glowed softly, remembering that first night. Claire picked up a wooden spoon, worn smooth from years of use. Her grandmother's spoon, brought from Earth. Let us begin, she said. Today we are making soup. Simple soup. The kind you make for someone you care about. And while we cook, I will tell you about my grandmother, and you will tell me about the people who taught you to love food. Because that is where all real cooking begins. With connection. With memory. With love. Outside, Threshold Station continued its busy rhythm. Ships arrived and departed. People from 100 worlds went about their lives. But inside Luna's Diner, something new was being created. A bridge between species built from the simplest materials. Flour and water, vegetables and care, technique and heart. Claire stirred the pot and smiled. Her grandmother would have loved this. A kitchen full of eager students, all learning that the best food feeds more than just the body. It feeds the spirit. It feeds connection. It feeds the part of us that needs to know we matter to someone. That was heart resonance. That was what the galaxy had been missing. And that was what Claire would teach, one simple meal at a time.